Hello, friends, and welcome to the final episode of Season 1 of In the Know. I'm JD, the Chief Learning Architect at Exonify, and oh boy, do we have a lot of show for you today. We're wrapping up 2022 by celebrating the release of my new book. That's right, the Modern Learning Ecosystem is officially available anywhere that you buy awesome business books. It's my personal, practical, and humorous take on the role L&D must play to build disruption-ready organizations. It's packed with stories and examples from past projects, including plenty of anecdotes from my time at Disney. So you can find your links to your favorite booksellers and additional resources over at jdwroteabook.com. And I have good news for everyone watching live on LinkedIn right now, because you're going to have multiple chances over the next 25 minutes to walk away with a free copy of the Modern Learning Ecosystem. So what I'm going to do throughout the show today is I'm going to ask you to drop keywords into the LinkedIn chat during the show. Anyone who drops a keyword will have a chance to get a free copy of one of the books that we're discussing today. And we're going to randomly select and then share names of our book recipients tomorrow via LinkedIn post. So that's Thursday, December 1st. And then we'll reach out to you directly on LinkedIn to help you get a copy of your book. So let's give it a try right now. If you're watching live on LinkedIn, want to grab a copy of my book, The Modern Learning Ecosystem, go ahead and enter the keyword Batman into the chat. Batman. You may be wondering, why Batman? Well, there are more Batman references in this book than any L&D book ever written, I'm pretty sure. And the whole idea is that in today's workplace, L&D is not the hero. We're not Batman. We're behind the scenes, making sure people have the support they need so they can do and be their best every day. Employees may not even know we're there, but they can feel our impact in how work is done. So we may not be Batman, but we're definitely Alfred. We're the person in the chair, helping Bruce Wayne be the best Batman that he can be. We're building the heroes. So that's why our first keyword is Batman. So if you drop the keyword in the chat, we may pick your name and mention it on LinkedIn tomorrow. So be sure to follow Exonify on LinkedIn, and you're going to have several more chances to get a book throughout our show today. And of course, it's not just my book that we're giving away. We're also going to be joined by three amazing authors from the L&D community. Elaine Biech, Karl Kapp, and Cara North are all here. They're going to share their insights into the book writing process and give away copies of their books to our live LinkedIn viewers. So now, if you can't tell, I'm already super uncomfortable talking about myself this much on the show, because typically I try to talk as little as possible on In the Know so I can feature insights and ideas from our guests. So I refuse to make this entire episode about me, even if it is my book launch party. Yes, it's my party, and I'll whine if I want to. So instead, let's spend a moment talking about a cause that's very special to me and the team at Exonify, and that's men's health. We're raising money for the Movember campaign to help make a difference in mental health and suicide prevention, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer. The Exonify team always finds creative ways to rally around this cause every November, and you would not believe the, let's just say, questionable amount of mustache action taking place in the offices and on Zoom calls around this month. But Movember isn't just an Exonify thing. Anyone can participate by donating to this worthy cause. So today being the last day of November, we want you to head on over to the Exonify Movember team page at the URL on the screen. We're dropping it in the chat. It's also in the show notes if you're watching the recording, to help us get our fundraising total as high as we can. And thanks to everyone across the Exonify community for your support, including everyone who's joining our live book/Movember watch party in the Waterloo office right now. Hi, everybody. How you doing over there? And speaking of generosity, let's welcome our first guest, someone who's incredibly generous with their insights as a veteran of the L&D profession. Elaine Biech is president and managing principal of Ebb Associates, Inc., an organizational and leadership development firm that helps organizations work through large-scale change. Her 30 years in the training and consulting field includes support to private industry, government, and nonprofit organizations. Elaine has published 88 books. That's 2 8s in a row. I barely got through one, including the renowned Art and Science of Training, along with the most recent edition of ATD's Handbook for Training and Talent Development. So basically, if you don't have an Elaine Biech book on your shelf, are you even in L&D? I counted. There are 7. behind me right now. Elaine Biech, you're in the know. How's it going?
Oh, wow. It's great. What an honor to be here to celebrate your new book and to be on your show. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for making the time. So honestly, you're a big part of the reason we're here at all celebrating, or that I have a book, because not only have you generously asked me to contribute to several of your recent volumes, but the first time we met was when you walked up to me after I finished a presentation at a conference and you commanded, you have to write a book about that. And the reality is, this is that book. So I'm curious, you saw something in that presentation that made it book worthy. So how do you know when an idea has book potential?
I know that a book has book potential when people need it, and you can't wait until people are talking about it or it's making waves, because it takes so long for most people to write a book, and then the publishing industry takes another year to get it out there. So when somebody's excited about a topic, the book needs to be put together and be on the shelf so that everyone can have it.
Totally with you there. And I can't imagine a situation where someone watching doesn't already have a copy of The Art and Science of Training, but just in case, let's give it away right now in the LinkedIn chat. So if you'd like a copy of one of the most wished for L&D books on Amazon, drop the keyword influence in the LinkedIn chat. Influence, because there's an entire chapter in my new book dedicated to influencing the way people think about the role of learning at work and the importance of applying concepts like learning science principles in our solutions. So drop influence in the LinkedIn chat right now, and we'll let you know if you're going to get a copy of this awesome book from Elaine Biech. Now, Elaine, in a world of unlimited and often free content, what role do you see books playing in professional development nowadays?
I think the important part about the book is that it gives you trust. You can trust that whatever's in that book has been researched. People have figured it out. It's good. It's made it to the book level. I think you can Google anything. You can get anything off the internet right now, but you just don't know for sure where it's coming from. The other part about it is, I think if you are actually in L&D, you really need to have that hard copy. You need to be able to mark it up. You need to be able to tab the important things. And as an author, I usually grab the best books off of my shelves and I spread them out on the floor. I do a lot of floor work when I'm writing a book. So I might have 20 books open. You can't do that on the internet. You can't have 20 things up all at the same time unless you have 20 screens or whatever. But I just think it's a matter of trust. I see my words all over. And as soon as your book gets out there, JD, you're going to see your words all over too. Sometimes you're going to be given credit for it, sometimes not. I think a book says, hey, you can trust this. So
I called it kitchen table work when I was writing I had things spread out. I have a large screen. And as you said, I had to spread a bunch of books out to kind of figure out how I was going to weave the story together. But along those lines, the writing process. So you're pretty notorious for just kind of going off grid to write a book at an accelerated pace. So I got to ask, what's your process for staying engaged, staying focused in a project like this when there are so many potential distractions?
Yeah. Distractions is the key word there. You've got to get rid of the distractions. It's true. All of the books that I've authored, except handbooks where there are other people involved, I've authored in 2 weeks. And you need to get rid of the distractions. No phone calls. I answer no texts. I answer no emails. I don't even turn it on. No TV. I just take everything I'm going to need for the 2 weeks. I'll, go out and get my groceries, have all the food that I need for those 2 weeks, all the resources I need, and then just lock myself in a great place with a great view and write. And I'll go out and walk and I'll do other things too. But I can, if anybody's interested, I can teach anyone how to write a book in 2 weeks. So
have you written a book called How to Write a Book in 2 Weeks? Because that feels like a book.
You know what? I've been told that. I guess I better get to work on that, huh?
I also enjoy the fact that the process you explained for writing a book sounded a lot like the zombie apocalypse. It's you're either, what's Elaine doing? She's either writing a book or preparing for The Walking Dead. We don't really know. So yeah, let's talk about me for a minute. Why not? So
let's talk about you.
You were one of the first people who actually read my book. And as the most prolific author in the space, I have to ask, when you read the early draft of the Modern Learning Ecosystem, what stood out to you that made it worthy of your endorsement?
Well, I have to tell you, JD, I'm giving you 3 F's for this book. Factual, functional, and fun. Didn't mean to scare you there, but truly, it's full of facts. It's full of information that people need to have. But not only that, it's functional. It's practical. People can just turn right around and do this stuff. It's not like you have to prepare for a long time. And then the most important part is that it's fun. Your personality just shines through. As I've told you before, I'm not sure exactly who you are, but it comes through in this book for sure. And it made me laugh out loud often. And that's the sign of a good book. I love being entertained by a book with a serious title. So thank you for writing that book. It's fun.
I greatly appreciate the endorsement, and I'm going to clip that last segment of the show and just kind of replay it every day to make myself feel good. So last question. We mentioned that you have 88 books already. I hear 89 is on the way.
Yeah.
What's it about? When can we expect it? How do we know it's available? Tell us about the next.
Sure. I'm just getting started on this one. It's an ATD consulting handbook. So this isn't going to be a 2-weeker. And it's ATD consulting handbook, how to start, grow, and succeed in consulting. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm also working on the 2nd edition of the ATD body of knowledge. And I will tell you, since you haven't done a 2nd edition yet, 2nd editions are boring. They're horrible because you have to reread your same stuff that you wrote, and then you have to redo it. So I hope nobody ever asks you to write a 2nd edition. Always say, no, I've got a new one. I want to write a new book. It's more fun.
So I'm the only person who reads their own book every night to go to sleep. Okay, I thought everyone did that. But Elaine, thank you again so much for being here today, for your support, for your glowing endorsement of my book, for joining our celebration. So since you've been so generous with me, we're donating $100 in your name to our Movember fundraising campaign. So again, thank you so much for all of your support and for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me again. Good luck.
My pleasure. So this may be the final ITK of the year, but we're already gearing up for season 2, starting in January with a stellar lineup of guests, including Jennifer Calcamuji, from the Director of Learning and Talent Development at Shake Shack, is going to be here to help us empower employees to bring their whole selves to work. Josh Cavalier, Learning Architect at American Tire Distributors, is going to be here to talk about producing great videos. And Bob Mosher from Apply Synergies is coming to talk about all things performance support. And that's just the first 3 shows of 2023. So be sure to block your calendar every other Wednesday at 11:30 Eastern Time, starting on January 18th for the return of ITK. And follow Exonify on LinkedIn for updates on all future ITK episodes. And now let's welcome our next guest, friend of the show, Karl Kapp. Karl is a professor of instructional technology and director of the Institute for Interactive Technologies at Bloomsburg University. He's authored 6 books, including The Gamification of Learning and Instruction, Play to Learn, and Microlearning Short and Sweet. Karl was on episode 4 of In the Know, where we talked about his YouTube series, The Unofficial, Unauthorized History of Learning Games. So Karl Kapp, you're in the know again. Karl Kapp's on mute.
And that, folks, is the secret to life.
There it is, everybody. That's our show for today. Thanks for joining us.
Congratulations on the book. Awesome job. I don't know very many people that write a book in 2 weeks. So Elaine is like superhuman in terms of that. I'm going to write a book, how to write a book in 1.5 years. I think that might be kind of fun. But yeah, it's great to be here. Congratulations on the book. I know it's a lot of work, but it's a process, and it's kind of a really interesting process, as you probably learned, where you think you know something or you think you have an angle on it, and then when you start to write it, it kind of changes, and it teaches you as you write the book.
Karl, along those lines, I have a very serious question about the whole book process for you. So I just want to point out that in your most recent book, Microlearning Short and Sweet, I'm mentioned on page 10 in this book. You're not mentioned at all in my book. So I wonder, how do you really feel about that?
Well, I try to mention JD in every book that I write. And so, yeah, I'm crushed, kind of. Like, I'm like, JD, like, he was the first, apparently I'm the first person, like, he recognized him from Twitter. I've been on his show. But you know, hey, it's now that JD is famous, I'm you know, like second fiddle. No, it doesn't matter. I mean, JD asked for an endorsement, and kind of as a joke, I wrote, "Oh, Karl Kapp's not mentioned." And I thought when I sent it to ATD that they would edit that out, but they didn't. So apparently they don't have the same sense of humor that I have. And I hope that you got a little kick out of it as you read that endorsement.
If I had complete control, I would have put it on the back of the book. Karl Kapp really likes this book, but he's upset that he's not in it. Rousing endorsement. But to give everyone an understanding, when you said, like you mentioned me and plenty of other folks in your most recent book, let's give away a copy of it right now. So in the LinkedIn chat, drop the keyword microlearning in the chat. And of course, microlearning, because it's the focus of Karl's most recent book. And I also cover several microlearning related principles in my book. So drop microlearning in the LinkedIn chat right now to get a copy, potentially, of Karl's latest book. So Karl, I'm curious, as a university professor, kind of how does that work influence the way you approach writing a book?
So one of the things that it guides me is I try to be as evidence-based as possible. So my background, my instructional training, all that kind of stuff is focused on evidence-based approaches. So when I write a book about microlearning or gamification or whatever I happen to be working on, I want to make sure that it is based on research and evidence and kind of what's happening in terms of making sure that that elements of it are peer reviewed. Now, that doesn't mean peer reviewed research is perfect. I think some people sometimes think that, oh, if it's evidence-based, then it's magically excellent. But there's been a lot of cases recently, not so much in instructional design and technology, but in medical field where people are faking data and faking all that kind of stuff. So you have to be careful, and you can't take it with, you have to be a little bit critical in your thinking, even of research. But that's my approach to when I write a book.
Great points, great foundation. So I know they say that you're not supposed to pick your favorite child, but I don't have kids, so I don't adhere to social norms. So I'm curious, what's your favorite book that you've authored and why?
So probably my favorite book is Gadgets, Games, and Gizmos for Learning, just because it was kind of an adventure to write that book, and it pulled in a lot of different elements that I thought was really kind of interesting. And you might have Batman mentioned more, but I did mention Batman in that particular book. So, and I mentioned Bruce Wayne, and I mentioned a couple other folks. So Batman has a rich tradition apparently in L&D.
We're looking for that DC money somehow.
Right.
Exactly. I don't know how we're going to get it, but we're looking for a Warner Brothers deal. There's a 2.5 page.
Added L&D to the DC universe, it would finally trump the Marvel universe, but I don't have any evidence to back that up.
What they lack is sufficient workplace training. I think we've discovered why Marvel is superior to DC. Right. We're learning lots today. And I would just like to point out, there's a 2.5 page rant in my book about the importance of Wile E. Coyote in learning and development. So I'm doubling down.
Okay, you got I don't know that if I have Looney Tunes in mind. Although my next book maybe will be That's All, Folks. Who knows?
It just ties all together so well. So I once noted that Elaine said that I'm famous now, which is completely not true. But you had a drink named for yourself at a conference once, the Karl Cappuccino. So that's another level to get to. And I'm going to point straight at the Gamification of Learning and Instruction as the book that got you a drink named after yourself. So I'm curious, when you have a book that almost becomes biblical in the profession, how do you get a sense of the impact that a book that you wrote is having, and how does that influence your work moving forward?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. The interesting thing is I had to fight with the publisher to get the word gamification in the title. So the one thing about writing a book is, you're free, hey, I can write whatever, and then you're like, oh no, the publisher wants this, and you can't put this on your back cover. But so that was a battle. And then right when I feel like that book hit the wave of gamification, so kind of crested it. And when you start getting emails from like internationally, like, hey, gamification is really kind of interesting, can you help me with this? Or when you see other people, like I try to sneak into gamification presentations sometimes just to see kind of like what's happening. And so when you see people like kind of reference that book, and when you hear people talk about it, then you're like, oh, okay, I think this is having having an impact. And I hope it's having a positive impact. And then, as Elaine said, then you lose all control, right? Then everybody's a gamification, everybody's read your book is a gamification expert, and everybody's talking about gamification. You're like, oh, well, that was kind of my thing, and so then you kind of have to think of something else. And so if you, and Elaine said, your words will end up somewhere else, and they will. But to me, to combat that is you keep going forward. Right. So the micro learning book, and I'm working on a book right now called Beyond Gamification. And so those kinds of things, if you stay still, you're going to be usurped. That's exactly what happens in any industry. So what you have to do is just keep moving forward, new ideas, new concepts, and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to say, I don't know if you're going to ask me a grade for your book, but I'm going to give you an A, but an A for approachability, because as Elaine said, like, I love books that you can, it's not heavily densely academic, but point after point is like, yeah, that's a great point. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I hope people enjoy the book and love the stories, but I hope they extract the really poignant lessons from the book and just the stories are great and you could just love that. But if you really want to get better in the field, apply those concepts and ideas. So that's, I don't know if you're going to ask me, but I just threw that out there.
Welcome to JD's Ego Boost episode, everyone. And right now, Cara North's in the background trying to figure out an analogy for another letter of the grading alphabet.
Right.
Because yourself and Elaine took the ends of the grading alphabet.
We took the easy one.
What can I make D stand for? It's his last name. So we'll see what Cara says. But Karl, you may not be mentioned in my book. Apologies, but you're literally everywhere else. So every time I see webinars, LinkedIn learning courses, books, upcoming books. So where are you going to be next? Where can we kind of find your insights?
Where am I going to be? So I still have that, unofficial, unauthorized history of learning games. I'm still loving that, having a great time with that. I started the L&D Mentor Academy. So for people that have been in the field for a few years and are looking for some career direction, we kind of do some stuff. That's fun. I am, as I said, working on that Beyond Gamification book. So that's kind of there. I'm going to be in New Orleans, ATD conference, and probably DevLearn again. And then I'm going to be like in my backyard chopping wood because we got a big pile of dead trees that I have to deal with. So if anybody, wants to come over and do that, the invitation is open.
Noted. So Karl, again, thanks so much for joining us today. For the second time, we're donating $100 in your name to our November campaign for men's health. Thank you for your endorsement of the book and all of your kind words.
Great. Thank you, JD, and congratulations. And I recommend everybody go out seriously and get the book. It's great.
Thank you again so much. So unfortunately, our next guest couldn't join us today due to his busy travel schedule. That's Brandon Carson, the Vice President of the Global Leadership Academy at Walmart and author of L&D's Playbook for the Digital Age, which was actually just recognized by Get Abstract with their Learning Impact Award for 2022. But we still want to give away a copy of Brandon's book. So if you want to grab a copy of Brandon's award-winning book, drop the keyword reinforcement in the LinkedIn chat right now. Reinforcement, because it's often a key missing piece within an organization's learning and support strategy, and ongoing practice is key to transforming knowledge into meaningful on-the-job behavior. So that's why there's an entire chapter in my book about reinforcement. So drop reinforcement in the LinkedIn chat for your chance to get a copy of Brandon's latest book. And even though he couldn't be here live, Brandon was nice enough to send me a written response to one of my planned questions, and that was, what role does being an author play in your career as a corporate L&D leader? And what Brandon said was, the best thing about it has been just sharing my experiences and knowledge gained over the years. I'm more focused on sharing to help others in the practice. As for the jobs I've been in while writing and publishing, it has helped me personally because it takes hardcore focus to manage a job and the writing process, parentheses, as you well know. So it's made me more structured, diligent, and detail-oriented, winky face emoji. It also provides a platform for expressing my ideas and an opportunity to help bring them to life where and when I can in the work that I do. Brandon is also co-founder of L&D Cares, a nonprofit that offers no-cost mentoring, coaching, and other resources to talent development professionals. So you can learn more about that by visiting ldcares.org. And thanks so much, Brandon, for everything you do. And we're excited to have you on a future episode of ITK. Now, I'd introduce our final guest for the show, but the truth is, if you don't know who Cara North is by now, you're just not paying attention. So she's an award-winning learning experience leader who has worked across multiple industries, founded her own consulting firm, will be dropping her own book, The Learning Experience Design Essentials, next July, and is very good at using props during live LinkedIn events. Cara North, you're also in the know again. How you doing?
Doing great. Congrats, JD. I know this was a big achievement, long time coming. And can I say, I think I was the first person to see this in the wild because I spotted it at DevLearn, was like, wait a second, that shouldn't be there. Didn't think that should be there. Let me let JD know. And I immediately sent you a picture.
I didn't even know the book was available. So you had it before the author in reality. So you're the first person to own my book before me, which is an interesting title to have and probably relatively meaningless. But speaking of my book and your book, so your first book just became available for pre-order and notoriously knocked my book out of the top spot on Amazon. So I'm curious, why start with this book? Why drop it right now?
Oh, what a great question. So I think like a lot of people, and I'm just going to be completely transparent here, I had a lot of imposter syndrome just throughout the entire journey of writing this book. And I've had good fortune to work in multiple different sectors. Like I've worked in higher education, I've worked in corporate, and now I'm a consultant. And so I was like, it takes some resilience and some massaging to kind of go and be adaptable in all three of these very different environments. And when I really reflected back on what has made me get to where I am and make the job, get it done, it's been this interesting, my own process piece of it. And I thought that was something special. And I thought, I really want to normalize that. I think a lot of books out there, and especially as people are reading about it, it just seems like this clean, simple process, right? Of like how to develop learning experiences. But I really wanted to normalize it's not always so clean. There will be mistakes. Murphy's Law loves learning and development. It's not if, but when something will go wrong. And I really just wanted to share that journey with people and just normalize, hey, you're going to make some mess ups along the way. Here's how you pivot and keep moving.
So I can feel the viewing audience leaning in towards the screen as you were talking, because now they're very curious about how do I get my hands on your book? So even though we're still 8-ish months away from the release, we do want to give a copy away to our live LinkedIn viewers right now. So if you drop the keyword experience in the LinkedIn chat right now, we're going to pick someone to pre-order Cara's book to make sure you can get a copy ASAP. So experience, of course, as Cara just said, learning is a lot more than just place and time courses. And that's also a key theme in my own book. So drop experience in the LinkedIn chat for a chance to get a copy of Cara's upcoming book. So I'm curious from your perspective as a first-time author. We've been talking to folks who've written thousands of books on the show today, apparently, from our conversation. So as a first-time author, what was the most challenging part of the experience and the most rewarding part?
Oh, gosh. Well, great company to be in today. Like Elaine, 2 weeks. I think she's superhuman, just like what Karl was saying. But I think definitely the most challenging, again, is just that little nugget in the back of your mind of like, who's going to read this? Who cares? Like, is this something replicatable for other people? Is it something that they're going to be able to do? And the way that I ended up approaching it was, this is the process that works for me. The full gamut of this you may be able to take, but more likely than not, you're going to be able to piecemeal different pieces. And I want this to be something that is a good reference for people that, if they're feeling stuck or if there's something going on, they can go back to and like, oh yeah, like maybe I can try this time, or, maybe I can approach it this way. So but I think it was really hard getting through the hump. And I don't know if he's here, but I'm going to give a huge shout out to ATD's Jack Harlow, who is like one of the nicest, kindest, most patient people on planet Earth. And he was tremendous in helping me massage and get a lot of this ready. I think most rewarding was just really looking back and saying, you know what, I've had some really cool experiences. I've worked at some really interesting places, from Amazon to Ohio State to in the semiconductor industry. So I've had this really weird trajectory and worked in a lot of different places, but I've been able to work with some incredible people and work on some cool things. So I think really the reflection of that was extremely rewarding, especially if it's something that people can take value from even better.
Jack also had to deal with me during the book writing process. So when you speak to being nice and patient, I definitely second your insight there. So we're about to run out of time. So I have one more question for you. Can you tell me, I've noticed it on LinkedIn, what's the deal with L&D December to Remember?
Yeah, so it's my version of Vlogmas. So if you're familiar, there's a term called Vlogmas where people put out a video every day during December. I wanted to do a little take on that. So I'm doing a L&D webinar every weekday in December. So that kicks off tomorrow. I have a knowledge, skills, ability workshop, and then it continues on through the rest of the year. So if you are interested in seeing the full calendar, you can go to the Learning Camels website and get the full calendar.
Awesome. Cara, again, thank you so much for jumping in late notice, for joining us as a guest for the second time, and congrats on your upcoming new book.
Oh, I have to grade you real quick, right?
Yeah. Which letter? You got A and F already taken.
Yeah, so you called me out and you were right. I was thinking, okay, what am I going to call it? I'm going to give it a P for practicality. I really enjoyed the stories. There were a lot of great stories. And one thing I appreciated is this is the most vulnerable I've ever seen you. And after knowing who you are for a long time and just seeing you open up and telling your story and through kind of your experiences, it was something extremely special and refreshing to see. So I'll give it a P for practicality. It's incredible. Buy this book.
Thank you. Greatly appreciated. And because of your generosity with us today, we're also donating $100 in your name to our Movember Men's Health campaign. So that's about it for our celebration today, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Special thanks to Karl Kapp, Elaine Biech, Cara North, Brandon Carson, and all of you for joining us today, supporting the release of my new book, as well as our Movember fundraising efforts. But before we run, let's give away a couple more copies of the Modern Learning Ecosystem. So in the LinkedIn chat, drop the keyword McFly. McFly, Back to the Future reference, my favorite movie, and it's referenced so many times in this book. You won't find them all. So remember to keep an eye out for your name tomorrow on Exonify's LinkedIn account as a potential lucky recipient of our awesome book giveaways. And be sure to follow Exonify on LinkedIn because we're going to be giving away even more books to our network in the very near future. So I'll see you in January for season 2 of ITK. Until then, I've been JD. Now you're in the know, and always remember to ask yourself the important questions. Like, why are writers always cold? It's probably because of all the drafts. Happy holidays. I'll see you next time.